Welcome to History with Humour, the channel where history isn't just dead, it's freaky, funny and sometimes disturbingly relatable. All right, let's talk about Gandhi, folks, the man who became a global symbol of peace and non-violence. But there's more to him than just the iconic images of a serene, bespectacled man in a loincloth. Gandhi's life was a tapestry of contradictions and complexities that make him a fascinating figure to study. The tiny dude in a diaper who took down an empire with nothing but a salt shaker and some strong opinions. You've got to respect that. Imagine the audacity and the sheer willpower it took to challenge the British Empire with pacts. But like any historical figure we drag out from time to learn some moral lessons, Gandhi wasn't perfect. He was a man of his times with all the flaws and contradictions that come with it. His life and actions are a reminder that even our heroes are human, capable of both greatness and imperfection. Turns out the man who preached non-violence had some interesting ideas about self-control. His approach to self-discipline was as rigorous as it was unconventional, often leaving people scratching their heads in confusion. He believed that mastering one's desires was key to achieving true freedom and peace. Gandhi was big on celibacy. He saw it as a way to purify the soul and strengthen the spirit. For him, celibacy wasn't just about abstaining from sex. It was about controlling all desires and impulses, a path to spiritual enlightenment, like really big on it. He believed that by conquering the most basic human urges, he could achieve a higher state of being. This wasn't just a personal quest. He encouraged his followers to adopt similar practices, seeing it as essential to their spiritual journey. He figured if he could conquer the ultimate human urge, well, then resisting a British tax collector would be a piece of cake. Makes sense, right? In his mind, the discipline required to abstain from physical desires would translate into the strength needed to resist political oppression. Well, hold on to your doties, because Gandhi's methods for achieving this celibacy were, shall we say, unconventional. He believed in testing his resolve in the most direct way possible, which often led to practices that were controversial and, frankly, quite shocking to many. We're talking sleeping in bed naked with teenage girls. This was his way of proving to himself and others that he could maintain his celibacy under the most tempting circumstances. It was a test of his willpower, but it understandably raised a lot of eyebrows. His grandniece, his personal secretary, you name it, they were probably tucked in there at some point. These were people he trusted, and he believed that their presence would help him in his spiritual quest. However, this practice was controversial and has been the subject of much debate and criticism. Now, Gandhi insisted it was all very innocent, just a test of his willpower. He argued that it was a necessary part of his spiritual discipline, a way to demonstrate his commitment to celibacy and self-control, but not everyone was convinced. But you got to wonder, if your idea of resisting temptation involves inviting it into bed with you, maybe you're not approaching the whole spirituality thing quite right. It's a method that certainly raises questions about the boundaries of self-discipline and the lengths to which one should go to prove their spiritual resolve. Gandhi's life, with all its complexities and contradictions, continues to be a subject of fascination and debate, reminding us that even the greatest figures are not without their flaws. Now, I'm no saint, far from it. I've had my fair share of moments where my actions didn't quite align with my intentions. We all have those moments, right? The times when we set out with the best of intentions but end up doing the exact opposite. It's part of being human, but even I know that the road to celibacy doesn't usually involve sharing a pillow with someone you're trying not to, have impure thoughts about. Imagine the awkwardness, the tension, the sheer willpower it would take to keep your mind from wandering. It's like setting yourself up for failure from the get-go. It'd be like me trying to give up Oreos by keeping a plate of them on my nightstand. Every time I glance over, there they are, tempting me, calling my name. It's a constant battle of willpower, and let's be honest, the Oreos usually win. It's just not a recipe for success. You wouldn't try to quit smoking by carrying a pack of cigarettes in your pocket, would you? The same logic applies here. Setting yourself up with constant temptation is a surefire way to fail. Gandhi, though, he was committed to this whole test yourself thing. He believed in pushing his limits, testing his resolve, and strengthening his willpower. It was all part of his journey towards self-mastery and spiritual growth. He figured the hotter the fire, the stronger the steel. The more challenging the test, the stronger his resolve would become. It was a philosophy that guided many of his actions and decisions. Except in this case, the fire was a teenage girl, and the steel was, well, let's just say, Gandhi was lucky he was a little fella. The situation was fraught with potential pitfalls and challenges that would test even the strongest of wills. The man wrote extensively about these experiments too. He documented his thoughts, his struggles, and his triumphs in great detail. It was all part of his quest for self-improvement and understanding. Can you imagine the diary entries, the candid reflections, the humorous observations, the moments of doubt and determination? It must have been quite the read. Day 47. Resisted the urge to ask for another blanket. Victory is mine. The small victories, the little moments of triumph, they all added up to a greater sense of accomplishment. It's all very bizarre and more than a little creepy, even if Gandhi himself never saw it that way. To him, it was all part of a grand experiment, a journey towards self-discovery and enlightenment. But to the rest of us, it can seem a bit odd. And the people around him, well, they were saints, every one of them. Imagine being Gandhi's follower, believing wholeheartedly in his message of peace and love, only to find out that your guru is basically running a sleepover camp for young women. Talk about a crisis of faith. Some folks defended him, of course. They said it was all perfectly innocent, that Gandhi was above such base desires. Others, well, they weren't so sure. But who were they to question the Mahatma? He was fighting for their freedom, after all. It's a pickle, no doubt about it. And that's the thing about history, isn't it? It's messy, complicated, and full of people who were both brilliant and deeply flawed. Gandhi, for all his talk of non-violence and self-control, was no different. Now imagine if Gandhi tried pulling this little experiment today. Can you picture the Twitter storm? The think pieces, the inevitable late-night comedy monologues? I'm looking at you, Colbert. One tweet about testing his celibacy with a young woman and Gandhi would be cancelled faster than you can say satyagraha. He'd be trending on Twitter with a hashtag that would make your grandma blush. Rightfully so, I might add. The man was a product of his time, no doubt. But some things, well, they're just not okay, no matter what century it is. Sleeping naked with teenage girls under the guise of spiritual growth definitely falls into that category. So, where does this leave us with Gandhi? The father of India, the champion of non-violence, the guy who liked to sleep naked with young women to test his willpower. It's a lot to unpack, even for a seasoned comedian like myself. On the one hand, you have the incredible achievements of the man. He led a nation to freedom, inspired millions with his message of peace, and basically invented the concept of passive resistance. He was, without a doubt, one of the most influential figures of the 20th century. But then there's the other side of Gandhi, the side that makes you scratch your head and say, wait, what? The side that makes you question whether we should be putting these historical figures on pedestals at all. The point is, folks, history is rarely black and white. It's a complex tapestry woven with threads of various shades and hues. It's full of grey areas, contradictions, and people who were both extraordinary and deeply flawed. Gandhi was no different. He was a man of immense influence and vision, yet he had his own set of imperfections and controversies. He was a great man, yes, but he was also a man of his time, with all the baggage that comes with that. His beliefs and actions were shaped by the era he lived in, and like all of us, he carried the weight of his experiences and the societal norms of his day. So, next time you see a statue of Gandhi or hear someone praising his name, remember the whole story. These imperfections don't necessarily detract from their greatness, but rather add a layer of authenticity to their story. And that's the show, everybody. We hope you've enjoyed this journey through the complexities of history and the multifaceted nature of its figures. Remember to tip your waitresses, try the veal, and don't sleep naked with teenagers, no matter how spiritually enlightened you think you are. If you enjoyed this little romp through history, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to History with Humour. See you next time, and keep it classy, or at least ancient.